many premium luxury brands, Packard relied on model recognition and conservative styling changes. But unlike other independent luxury brands during the Great Depression, Packard was able not only to survive, but to remain profitable, although just barely. They did this by continuing to move down market with ever smaller and cheaper models, leaving behind the traditional Twin 6 or V12, and even offering just a regular 6, all while remaining America's best-selling luxury brand, in spite of diluting its image. The answer to recovering its image was to create a car that looked more modern, but was still easily recognizable as a Packard. At the time, associating luxury cars with yachts seemed like an obvious choice, so the car was named Clipper for the fast sailing ships that cut their way through the waves. Introduced in 1941, the Clipper looked very much like a Packard was supposed to look, but was sleeker. Compared to other 41 Packards, the hood was lower, the windshield more angled, and the fenders flowed into the body, being a solid piece of metal from the front of the car to the door. It was the first closed car to be wider than it was tall, and the hood could be opened from either side, but it was only available as a four-door sedan. Available features included semi-automatic transmission, or a vacuum-controlled automatic clutch, air conditioning, and heated leather seats, called an auxiliary under-seat heater. There was a vent-alarm whistle to warn when the tank was nearly full to avoid overfilling, and an accelerator-activated starter button that automatically activated the choke. Wheelbase was 127 inches, and it used an 125 horsepower version of Packard's 282 straight 8. Prices started at around $1,400, bidding just above the Model 120, with first-year sales reaching nearly $17,000. For 1942, all Packards took on the Clipper name, with 4 trim levels named after the previous models. The Clipper 110 used a 245 cubic inch straight 6 with 105 horsepower and ran on an 120 inch wheelbase, except for the convertible, which had a 122 inch wheelbase. The Clipper 120 continued on with the 125 horsepower 282, and the convertible version used the 127 inch wheelbase, while all others used the 120 inch wheelbase. The Clipper 160 and 180 used a bigger 356 cubic inch straight 8 with 165 horsepower, and were available in 127, 138, and 148 inch wheelbases. A base Clipper 110 could be had for $1,200, where a Clipper 180 LeBaron could cost more than $5,600. 1942 production reached 34,000 before being halted by the war. Production restarted in 1946 with no real changes other than the trim levels being renamed, and all Packards took on the Clipper styling. The 110 became the Clipper 6, the 120 the Clipper 8, and the top models were now Super Clippers. The 6 and 8 were only on the 120 inch wheelbase, while the Super Clippers were available in 127 and 148 inch wheelbases. The 1948 restyle moved Packard down market again in fear of a pending recession, and the Clipper name was dropped. Then there would be another Packard restyle in 1951, but in a 1953 attempt to move back up market, the Clipper name was revived for the base model, replacing the 200 designation. Prices ranged from $2,500 to $2,800, and sales exceeded $65,000. Wheelbase was 122 inches, and base Clippers used a 288 cubic inch straight 8 with 150 horsepower, while the Clipper Deluxe used 160 horsepower 327 straight 8. For 1954, the Clipper got a distinct rear taillight treatment from the more expensive Packards. The 327 gained 5 horsepower, and a better-equipped Super Clipper was added to the line that included a Panama hardtop coupe. 1955 got updated styling, but the rear styling carried over, and the straight 8s were replaced by overhead valve V8s. The base, deluxe, and Super Clippers used 120 cubic inch V8 with 225 horsepower, while the custom sedan and Constellation hardtop used a bigger 352 cubic inch, 245 horsepower V8. For 1956 only, the Clipper became a separate division. The 320 V8 was dropped, and the 352 was up to 275 horsepower. Trim levels were reduced to Deluxe, Super, Custom, and Constellation, and the new taillight design would become the favorite for customizers for the next several decades. Starting price was roughly $2,700, and sales were under $20,000. The Clipper was once again badged as a Packard for 1957, and was the only Packard, but was now essentially the same car as the Studebaker President. In order to keep tooling costs as low as possible, trim components from the 56 Clippers were used, including the 56 Clipper tail lamps and the chrome wheel covers. Body styles were limited to a 4-door town sedan and the country sedan station wagon, and the only engine was a supercharged version of the Studebaker 289 with the same 275 horsepower. The car's obvious Studebaker origins led the new Clippers to be derisively nicknamed Packard Bakers, and it didn't help that prices were up $500 to over $3,200. Only about 4,800 were sold for the year, of which less than 900 were the station wagons. The cars carried over for 1958 with updated styling that included quad headlights and dual tail fins. The Clipper badging was dropped, leaving just the Packard badge, but the cars were still referred to as Clippers to differentiate them from the new Hawk, also a restyled Studebaker. And the supercharger was dropped, except in the Hawk, reducing horsepower to 210. But these would be the last Packards, the end of one of America's most iconic luxury brands. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.